She was driving up to where there's like a fork in the road. It's a dirt road, and said a werewolf came up out of the woods, walked across the road, stopped in the middle of the road, turned and looked at her, snarled, turned back around, took off up into the woods. The thing was about 7.5 foot tall and looked like a werewolf you'd see on TV, like on a movie or something.
They claim that our eyes will just be created a slightly different from what they are. We talk, we see things that are not normal.
Welcome to Strange Familiars. How are you doing tonight, Alison?
I'm cold.
It is between the months of October and April, as I said before.
It's the blanket month.
Alison usually, if she's home, she usually has a blanket wrapped around her. Sometimes like a cloak over her head.
You lose a lot of your heat from the top of your head, Tim.
I'm told that. Mm-hmm. With this awesome mane of hair, it's really not a problem for me.
Yeah, I wouldn't understand.
On tonight's show, I'm going to be talking with Chadwick about this property on Chestnut Ridge he's been investigating. And Chadwick was on the show before, and he made the cast of these three-toed footprints. In fact, the cast I have in that case right there. And then he met some people. He actually knew them, like a childhood friend kind of thing. He said, hey, there's some weird stuff happening on our property. And it happens this is kind of right over the ridge from where he cast those footprints anyway.
Oh, okay.
But they're having a lot of weird stuff there. Like they saw what they called a werewolf. They got something on the trail cam, which they said looks like a goblin. I haven't seen that picture. And there's orbs and all kinds of stuff happening there, Bigfoot stuff. So it's pretty interesting. And then after that, I'm going to be talking with Tyler, who has one of these creepy stories. We tend to get them in groups, you know, we'll tend to get like a group of Flanaman stories at once. And we're tending to get a group of these right now about these things that kids see when they're little that kind of take the form of cartoon characters and stuff. This is like potentially really disturbing. Luckily, we don't have any stories of kids who went with these phantom cartoon characters. Who knows what would happen.
Do you think that the mind just subs in something pleasant or dealable to deal with something that really is there? Or like
it absolutely could. It could be where we all skin these things in our own way, you know? An adult looking at the same thing might have seen something entirely different. I don't know. But we'll talk to him. He saw I would say, beloved cartoon character in a creepy closet in his school. And then after that, we'll be reading just a selection of ghost stories from Pennsylvania I found from old newspapers. Every now and then, just like to break them out and read some of these old stories. I Have Never Minded the Loneliness, my hermit book. So I got the first proof, had some minor errors and one or two pretty major ones that I had to fix. Got a second proof coming. That should be here this week. I think that's going to be fine. I just need to look it over, make sure the pagination is right, make sure everything looks good. As long as that proof looks good.
It'll be live.
It should be live, end of this week, early next week, something like that.
So are we going to take some pre-orders so that as soon as our copies come in that we can just send them out to people?
Yeah, we could do that. I could put up on Etsy as a pre-order, I suppose.
Yeah, that way they would people would potentially get them from us. And
yeah, and I will announce it. I'm not going to be quiet about it. I'll be loud. You'll know when it's available on Amazon. You'll know when we have our copies, et cetera, et cetera. It's coming very soon. I'm super excited about it. 3 years of work. When I look back on that, I'm like, wow. So I'm excited to finally get that published. All right, let's go ahead and get to Chadwick and talking about this property on the Chestnut Ridge. I'd like to welcome Chadwick back to Strange Familiars. How you doing?
Oh, not too bad. How are you doing, Tim?
I'm doing all right. People might remember you from the three-toed tracks I had you on talking about that you had found up there on the Chestnut Ridge. And I guess you were on a TV show regarding that, weren't you?
Yeah. Yeah, it was Alien Encounters, Fact or Fiction.
They didn't handle it too much to your liking, if I recall, right?
Yeah, not really. They kind of made us look like we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah, did they try to say it was bird footprints or something?
Yeah, they tried to say it was emu tracks.
They are not emu tracks.
No. Well, I even looked into it, and emu tracks they don't get nowhere near that big. Like
Yeah,
a 6
exactly.
foot tall, a 6 foot tall emu only has like a 6 to 7 inch track.
Right.
So, going by that logic, these things would have had to been 12 feet tall.
Right. Yeah. And they don't look like emu tracks.
Not at all.
I think the three-toed thing just really throws some people. They just cannot wrap their head around it. But I point out again and again, look, this has been happening for decades around this phenomenon. Whether it's Bigfoot or not, it happens around Bigfoot. You get these three-toed tracks,
It's actually been happening in this area for decades, too.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, look at the ones Gordon's people found back in the 70s.
Exactly. Yeah, they were here, too. Three-toed tracks were all over the state in the 70s. And Chad Redding and I
found some in
Chad Redding and
Springs, or is that where it was? Muddy Springs? Or?
Yeah, Muddy Creek. Chad Redding and I found a series of three-toed tracks. They were too messy to really cast, but you could clearly see where something it looked like walking and then picked up the pace to a run and then had an impact with a deer. There was just deer hair everywhere. No sign of a deer. But the stride length would get bigger and bigger as it looked like it just took off running and hit a deer. It's amazing. Like, this whole scene was pretty incredible.
Yeah, I remember listening to that one, man. It started creeping me out. I was like, what did they find? Holy cow. And when you guys started saying about the deer hair and stuff, I was like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah,
that was pretty amazing.
That was a good find. It was also about 5 miles back on that trail. So even if we had casting material that would have worked this was like, the mud was so wet, the tracks were like filled with water,
Yeah.
And I know there is, I think, different kinds of casting material that'll work with that, but A, we didn't have it with us, and B, we're like 5 miles in, so we would have had to hike 5 miles out, get to a hardware store, 5 miles back in. It just wasn't happening. And by the time we did get back there, they were gone.
Yeah, it's a little too much, but
Yeah, exactly. Well, you sent me some information about this property you're investigating. This sounds really interesting. And
this place is strange, man.
What's going on
this
there?
Place really, they have all kinds of crazy stuff going on here. First of all, I think not just the house, but the property as well. I think it's haunted, like all of it, because I started doing a little bit of research on it. I didn't get too much done, but the area where they're at was settled by Monongahela Indians.
Okay.
And they're basically a branch of Iroquois Indians. And I just have a weird feeling that there's some kind of curse or something on the property, man, because, well, first of all, it's on top of a mountain. They're out there by themselves. And here's the kicker. Here's the part that like really interested me. You know how I told you where I found those tracks? There's like a sandbank
and
then the creek. Well, if you go across the creek, there's a mountain, goes up like it's pretty steep. It's like where the pipeline and stuff is too. But if you go up that mountainside I'd say about 2 miles, that's where their property is.
Interesting. Yeah. So
it's very close to where I found those tracks. And I think that, that might tie into this eventually.
Yeah. Because, I mean, in terms of the other 2 miles is nothing, it's just nothing.
Right. But like I was going to say, I started driving down their driveway, and their driveway, it's pretty long, and it starts to like narrow in, kind of like turns into almost like a quad trail. It gets so small. But at a certain point down their driveway, around this one bend, I just start getting a real like ominous I don't know how to explain it. It's just a really strange, spooky feeling, like there's something bad there.
So I know you've started Chestnut Ridge Paranormal, where you're doing investigations and stuff. Is that how or why they contacted you? Or did you know?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I knew both of them. I didn't know they were together. I grew up with the woman. We were pretty close growing up because her parents and my parents were like best friends. So we were like all always together and stuff. And I trust her. I know she wouldn't lie to me or anything about this stuff, And a couple years ago, I was at the dentist and she worked for the dentist office that I went to. And I showed her a couple of those pictures of those tracks. And she told me, she was like, listen, I'm going to tell you something, but if you tell anyone or say my name or anything like that, I'm just going to flat out call you a liar and deny it.
Yeah.
See, she wants nothing to do with being known for this. You know what I mean? She wants to stay anonymous. Now, her husband, I'm not so sure about. I don't think he's like as worried about it as she is, but she definitely wants to stay anonymous and not have her name brought up. But she told me that a bunch of them were getting like ready to go quad riding, and she was driving up to where there's like a fork in the road. It's a dirt road. If you go right, it goes to his driveway. And if you go left, it goes back to a pipeline and stuff. Well, she said she got up to that split and said a werewolf came up out of the woods, walked across the road, stopped in the middle of the road, turned and looked at her and like snarled, turned back around, took off up into the woods.
Wow.
She swore up and down to me that she's not lying. This really happened. Said the thing was about 7.5 foot tall, and for all intents and purposes, looked like a werewolf you'd see on TV.
Wow.
Like on a movie or something, And like I said, I grew up with her. I believe her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the funny thing is her husband, the first time I went up, he said he saw the same thing, but he only saw the lower portion of it from like the waist down, like the backwards bent legs and it freaked him out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And they were having other activity there too, or at least they were getting stuff on trail cams, right?
They have all kinds of stuff. He just called me last weekend. I didn't get to go up this week at all, but he called me last Saturday. I went up the Wednesday before, so like 2 Wednesdays ago. Yeah. I went up and like littered the place with trail cameras. And he had another one that he put out, and he said he went out and checked the one that he put out. Swears up and down. There's a photo of me, like I was walking by, and he said, there's something behind me, like right behind me. It's about 2.5 foot tall, and he swears it looks like a goblin.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I have yet to see this one. He said it's crystal clear. It's a very clear picture, and he said it looks like a goblin.
Wow.
So as soon as I get that, I'll send that to you to check out too. And then he said he had another one on the same camera that looks like a skeleton coming up out of the ground. And he said these ones are like crystal clear. So we'll see, because I plan on going up probably tomorrow, either tomorrow or Sunday. I want to see these pictures he has, and plus I want to check the cameras I put out and see if there's anything on them.
Yeah, yeah. So are they having anything happening at their house or inside their house, or is this is just all on their property surrounding?
No, there's stuff going on inside the house too. They hear stuff, like stuff will get moved, pretty much poltergeist activity in the house and outside the house. I mean, they just have like a gambit of everything going on.
Yeah,
it's so crazy.
Not terribly surprised. You sent me one image. Was it a green orb?
Yeah.
And you said it's an entity sort of transformed into that orb?
Yeah, if you look at the one picture with the tree with whatever that is beside the tree, it's some type of creature. I think it might be like a smaller Bigfoot or something. I don't really know what it is, but if you zoom in on that creature, you can see that its eyes are glowing. Now, I didn't see this happen, but they said that that creature come walking out of the woods, walked for maybe 10 yards, turned into a green orb, and flew away.
Wow. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
the green orb is crystal clear in the photos.
yeah, yeah, but the creature isn't, it's blurry, of course, but
Yeah.
like I said, if you zoom in on it, you can tell that its eyes are glowing. It's really crazy looking.
Okay. Yeah, I hadn't zoomed in on it previously. I was just looking on my phone. Wow. Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that wild looking?
Yeah. And so did they witness this thing turn into an orb?
Yeah,
Man, that's incredible.
yeah. I wish I would have been there to see that.
Yeah.
They swear up and down that this thing come walking out of the woods, walked for a little ways, turned into an orb, and flew across the field.
Yeah, as I say over and over again, I am not a photo expert. So,
Oh, me neither.
yeah, I don't always know what I'm looking at. And a lot of people be like, oh, that's a lens flare, that's this, that's that. But as far as I'm concerned, those look really cool and really convincing to see a green orb in the daylight. I mean, these photos are broad daylight.
I think it was the last one I sent you of those where it's flying across the field.
Yeah.
You can see the dog at the bottom of the picture looking up at the orb.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's definitely not like a lens flare or anything. A dog's looking straight at that orb.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. And then it seems like it's definitely moved across the landscape. So
Yeah,
again, I don't know exactly how lens flares work, but
right.
it does not appear in the same place in each photo. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's seems like it's moving.
Yeah, yeah. So, what have you experienced while you've been there?
Not really very much. I've only been there twice so far, and it wasn't very long each time. See, that's why I had prior engagements over the last couple of weekends, things I had to do, but
Sure.
this will be the first weekend where I don't have anything to do and I can go up there and actually spend some time and see what's going on, you know?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, properties like this are dream properties. You know, when they have multiple things going on like that, it's a real chance to experience some of this stuff and just get involved in it. I'm excited for you, man.
Hey, you guys can come out if you want.
I was gonna ask. I was gonna ask.
Well, I already talked to them about it and they're all for it because, I told them about you and how you go and investigate stuff. And he's like, you want to bring them out? They're more than welcome.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Hey, and here's another cool thing too. My one cousin, I was talking to him a couple weeks ago. He owns the mountaintop across from that mountain, okay? And he has a cabin on it, and he said that I can pretty much do whatever I want with it. He pretty much gave me his cabin
Oh,
because they
perfect.
don't.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
mean, I have yet to go up and check it out and see what kind of shape it's in, but it's supposed to be in pretty decent shape. So I'm going to do that over this weekend sometime too. But I mean, even if it needs some work, the guy said that we could stay at his place, we could camp on the property, we could stay in the basement, in the house, whatever. I mean, it's up to you guys.
Yeah. I'm not above winter camping, but a cabin's even nicer. Even if it's a primitive cabin, that's fine with
Right.
me.
Yeah, I'm gonna go check that out either tomorrow or Sunday, probably Sunday, but I'll let you know what kind of shape it's in. It should be pretty decent though,
Yeah. Yeah.
from everything I remember. Oh, and yeah, and there's another thing about that too. The cabin, there's a cemetery on the property up there, and it's not very far from my aunt's house. But growing up, we've heard so many stories about that place. Supposedly, it's haunted, like really bad. So we might be able to check it out too.
All right. Let's make a long weekend of it or something.
Yeah.
I'll hit you up with some dates and we'll figure it out.
Okay.
But yeah, definitely. We can see what we can do.
I have a week's vacation I can still take too. So if you want to stay longer than a weekend,
All right. Well,
it's up to you guys.
yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll start planning. We'll figure it out.
Cool.
Hey, I saw you mention you're starting up a podcast. Is that in the works?
Yeah, all I have to do now, see, I'm trying to decide on whether I want to build a website or get one of those hosting platforms. I'm still trying to, like, I got everything else ready to go. I got people lined up to come on, and I just got to either build a website or get a hosting site.
Okay.
I can't decide which would be better.
Well, I have some thoughts for you, but again, we'll do that off the air. But
Okay.
let me know when you get it rolling. You can come back on. You can promote your podcast.
Cool. Thank you.
Get some new ears on it for you. Well,
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you wanted to come on once I get it going.
absolutely. Absolutely. No problem. Just let me know when, and I'm there.
Awesome. Yeah, but not only this property, see, I got like multiple things going on at once, and I'm trying to do a little bit of each one, and it's getting like a little overwhelming because remember me telling you about the guy I work with, how he said that, well, they moved into a new house, and he said like a few weeks after they moved in, he could hear a really weird, like strange howling coming from the ridge behind their house. And this guy, he's hunted pretty much all of his life, and he's a couple years younger. I'm 47. He's a few years younger than me, so he knows animal sounds. And he said this was nothing like he ever heard before. And he knows I'm into like Bigfoot stuff and everything, you know.
Right.
So we went out a couple of times and investigated the woods behind his place. And this place is crazy. It's pretty wild. Where we were investigating, there's on one side, there are high tension power lines, like a high tension power line pipeline. And on the other side of this property, there's a stone quarry. And we were in like right in the middle of it. I'm pretty sure I sent you those 2 trail camera videos of the ridge across the way lighting up in the middle of the night.
I think so. It's been a bit.
Yeah, it was a while ago, but yeah, if you can find that and check it out again, you see that whole hillside will like light up with orbs in
Wow.
different spots at different times. And I went out like a week later to make a comparison video during the day to show everybody that there are no houses. There's nothing over there that should be producing any kind of light, nothing at all. And in those 2 videos, that whole hillside's lighting up. It's crazy. And I don't even know what made the trail cameras go off because the distance, the lights are too far away to make the trail cameras go off, but something did.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, at Site 7, we realized we thought these lights were, 100 yards away, 200 yards away, 50 yards away. Come to find out, they're a lot closer. Like, it messes with your distance. I don't know how it works, but I really thought they were way back in the woods. But we found out, like, as we were seeing them in the summer, and there's this leaf cover. Like, oh, wait a minute. We turn on our lights and we realize, whoa, those were like 20 feet away. But they appeared like they were 100 yards back or something like that. It's just it's weird the way it messes with your perception like that.
I know. I like that theory Tyler come up with about stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That got me thinking one day. I was like, wow.
Yeah. Oh,
pretty
yeah. Yeah. The green orb thing, did you get a estimate of the size of that creature? Like, could you get to that area and like kind of check out that tree and make a guess as to what size that thing was?
I haven't yet, but I'm gonna do that when I go up.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't mean anything as regards to stuff. It doesn't look huge in the picture, but that means nothing. Like,
That's what I was thinking. Like, if it is like some kind of like a Bigfoot creature or something, it would be like maybe a smaller juvenile one or something. But I'm not saying for sure what it is because I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And when they have these multiple things going on like this, I have no doubt that Bigfoot's involved, but they have other stuff involved too. It definitely gets on the paranormal side of things, I think. And
Yeah.
you never know what you're going to get. You got goblins and werewolves and Bigfoot-like stuff. The one trail camera picture you said they thought with Bigfoot that you sent, it's just like a shadow, I think, in it, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I looked at that over and over and over again. I can kind of see a face beside the tree because when I was up there, there's nothing beside that tree. If I go up tomorrow, I'll take a picture from the deck and send it to you where you can see like there's nothing there beside the tree, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that, but
it's so hard to tell.
Right.
I mean, I could draw a Bigfoot in there based on what I see, but
right.
Yeah, I love photos. I love looking at them, but I also don't know how valuable they are because
it's hard to prove anything with the photo like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Chadwick, keep us posted on this. I'm going to talk with you. We'll set up a time we can get out there and look at that property with you, and keep me posted about your podcast. Stay in touch.
Oh, most definitely.
You got a name for your podcast yet?
I'm probably just going to call it Chestnut Ridge Paranormal.
I think that's a good idea. Just keep it
Paranormal Ridge, maybe. I don't know, something like that.
I mean, for what it's worth, if you keep it the same, then people can find you everywhere, whether they're looking for you for the podcast or something else.
That's what I was thinking, something like that, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Keep us in mind. Anything weird happens, you know where to find us, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Tim.
Next up, we have Tyler with his story of what he saw in the janitor's closet when he was a kid in school.
Oh, it's school?
Yeah. So I'm talking with Tyler. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
I'm very interested to get this experience. So I know a little bit about it from the description you sent me. Did you hear about other people having similar things on Strange Familiars, or had you heard about it elsewhere?
So before I heard the episode where you had someone with a similar experience, I wasn't sure if anyone else has ever experienced that at all. It was like the first time that I've ever actually heard about it. And then after that, I started looking deeper into things and finding more people on the internet that have also experienced similar things.
Yeah. So this is a pretty disturbing thing if you think about it. But rather than pregame it, why don't you just walk us into your story? About what age were you when this happened?
I want to say I was like between the age range of like 5 and 7.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure it happened in elementary school. I thought it might have been preschool, but I think I was a little older at the time when it happened. And basically, how it started was we were on our way to the art class. And before we were allowed to go in the art class, the teacher was like setting up this little project for us. It was basically where she was having these like papers that were set up on the tables with like watercolors and stuff like that. So she wouldn't let us inside the class until it was all set up. And we were basically lined up outside her class. And it was like in this long hallway where at the end of the hallway, there's like this janitorial closet. And we're on like the left side of the hallway, just sitting outside, waiting for her to let us in. But eventually, what kids started noticing was at the end of the hallway on the door, above the door, there was this glass where you could kind of see inside it. And from what I was no lights on, and the closet door was completely shut. But they started seeing this SpongeBob plushie. It looked like a plushie where it was like peeking its head out from the glass, and it was making a lot of the kids laugh. It was making the kids, like me, for instance, I felt really nervous about it because it felt like it was like odd to see. It felt really out of place. And when it would peek its head up, it would duck its head back down here and there. So it would just do that a lot, kind of like it was trying to play peekaboo with the kids. And it would also wave at us too. So from that, once the teacher finally let us back in the class, it ducked its head down and it didn't pop up like ever again after she came back out to get us. And while I was in her class, I was just thinking about it the whole time because it was just so weird to me that something like that was happening at the school. Because, like, you know, when you're in elementary school, stuff like that doesn't happen. It's just so weird, especially in like a storage closet.
Yeah.
And I would like think to myself, I want to go out and see it again, but something inside of me was like telling me not to do that. And the kids that I sat with at my table, one of them actually asked the teacher to go to the restroom because he wanted to go out there and look and see if it would like show up again. But when he came back, he said like nothing popped its head back up from the window. And that was kind of the end of it from like seeing it. But I always thought about like what it could have possibly been. And I always thought maybe it was a janitor or a teacher playing a prank on the kids. But then again, I don't think that would be normal for someone to be in like a dark closet doing that, especially with children. So it kind of just stayed in my mind all the way until adulthood. But I don't really get that many paranormal experiences, and it doesn't really, at least it's involved in my everyday life. But when I heard that story on your show, I was like genuinely shocked that like other people have had the same experience as me. I was kind of happy too, because I've always felt like maybe it was in my head or if I was crazy or something about it, but it just kind of made me feel like I wasn't alone in it, you know? So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when it waved, did it look like someone was making it wave?
that's, yeah, that's the thing too. It was completely dark, but you could see its arm very visibly. Like you could see, because, you know, it's bright yellow.
Mhm.
I didn't see a hand or anything that would be like using the doll as like a puppet or anything. It really looked like it was doing it all on its own. And the door was probably like, it was probably like 6 feet taller or higher. So I feel like if a person was like controlling a doll to do that high, they'd have to be like on a stool or something in there. So
Yeah. It's odd. It seems like, I guess it's not impossible someone would do that, but it's, you know, schools don't usually put up with that kind of stuff from teachers, and they don't
yeah,
they don't encourage that kind of stuff. What size was it?
yeah.
A guess it, if you had to guess.
Yeah, so I would say when I think about the size, it's probably like the size of a Walmart pillow that you can buy, like a regular normal pillow, but
Okay.
maybe slightly smaller. And the arms were kind of long, not like extremely long, kind of like just it looked proportionate to what the body was.
Mm-hmm.
But what we could mostly see was just the head, but it looked like it made sense.
Yeah.
So
Huh. And it looked just like the SpongeBob from the cartoon.
yeah, it had a smile. It had a smiling face. Its eyes, they were blue like he has, and they were bright. Like it. When I say it looked like a plushie, it literally looks exactly like a plushie. It was just in a dim closet. So
Did you ever talk to any of your other classmates about it, like ever again? Did you, like later in the school year or anything, did you say, remember that?
so the thing about it, like when I was in art class and we talked about the incident outside and like wanting to go out there and see it, I remember I think his name was Darren, and the girl, I don't remember her name, but it was just two people at my table with me. And we never really mentioned it ever again after that day. It was just basically, if it felt almost like a dream when I think back on it, but we talked about it a little bit in class, and then once he came back into the classroom, nobody mentioned it ever again after he said he didn't see it. But it was always just a significant memory I had just because of how weird it was.
Yeah, it's odd that it sticks with you. I mean, to me, it says something, that it sticks with you as something kind of disturbing like that.
Yeah, and it's been bothering me a lot more recently too, just because of all of the incidents I'm seeing that are similar. And I guess it's more of like the curiosity of wanting to know what it is, because I'm pretty open to like figuring out like the actual reason. And I'm not gonna say it was aliens. I'm not gonna say it was like ghosts or people. Like I don't know. So
Yeah.
I've always just been curious about it.
Yeah, there's just something about these things appearing as, cartoon characters or like costumed, things that would appeal to children normally. Beckoning kids or trying to appeal to kids. It's just something a little weird about it. It concerns me. Let's put it that way. I'm sure you heard me talk about the one on the show we had where there was one trying to beckon a kid. He was under a trail or under a porch. I forget which. And the kid didn't go, but I always just think about that and wonder, like, what would have happened if he went? Like, would he even be around?
That's the main thing about it that freaks me out too when I think back on it, because I wasn't the only kid who saw it, so everyone else saw it too.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone saw it, like trying to get our attention, and it was just in the weirdest place too, like in a storage closet. I always think about that a lot too, just like what would happen if you do follow it, or like just what's behind it in general, like just
Yeah.
trying to figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. It's odd stuff.
Yeah. I normally keep stuff like this to myself just because I don't have that many like paranormal experiences in my life. But I feel like if I would tell other people this, they would kind of look at me like I'm crazy just because it's such a random like memory to have as a kid, or maybe they would tell me I imagined it. But
Right. Yeah.
that's like one of the only memories from my childhood that I can really look back on and remember the order of like how the events played out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of weird to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And then going through life, nothing much else paranormal happened.
Nothing like as big as that one, but where my mom lives, before I moved out, I was around the age of like 17. I would get some weird experiences there. And it was like during COVID. So, do you want me to tell about that too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, where she lives, we're like in these three-story apartment building, and we're in the second floor. And the second floor is pretty high up, and my window in my bedroom, if they were to fall out of it, they would probably like, be they would probably break ankles or something like that. Like it's not like near the ground where someone can mess with your window or knock on it. And around nighttime, I was in my room one day, and I was laying on my bed. I was about to go to sleep, but I heard these loud, distinctive knocks on the window, and there were three knocks, and it freaked me out so much where my hairs on my arm stood up, and I got chills, and I ran out of my bedroom to let my mom know like something just knocked on my window. And my mom, she's very old school with like her beliefs, and she comes from like an Asian country.
Mm-hmm.
So when she hears stuff like that, she wants no part of it. So she was just telling me like it's nothing, anything like that. So that was probably the weirdest one I had. And my girlfriend's she can kind of like see stuff too. And one time she said she saw something in my mom's closet. My girlfriend and I were visiting my mom's apartment one day too, and she went to use the restroom in my mom's bedroom. And when she was done using the restroom, she was walking out. And where my mom's closet is, it's like right next to the door of her bedroom, and it was cracked open a little bit. And she said she saw like it was like a apparition of like an old man in there, but she didn't mention anything to me about it until like later on when we weren't there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never seen anything like that, but I believe her about like, what she saw there, because she's seen like a lot of creepy stuff growing up. And I always tried to like understand and believe what people say, because I know with my experience too, like I would want people to do the same for me.
Right.
So it's kind of odd with that apartment because there it's like nothing ever happens except for those two things that happened to my girlfriend and me. And I don't know if my sister has experienced anything there either. Probably have to ask her one day just to see if she has or not. But
Yeah.
what's funny is though, where the street is of our apartment complex, right down the road, there's a cemetery too.
Mm.
So I don't know if maybe that could be part of the reason why or not.
It's worth noting. It's worth noting. Apartments can be weird places. I get a lot of stories from apartments, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I think people think you have to have a old Victorian mansion or something to be haunted. No, we get a lot of stuff from apartments for sure.
Yeah, and I know these apartments, they were freshly built. Like I think my family moved in around 2015 when I was still in middle school, and from there I remember when we moved in, my mom told me like they just built the apartments like 2 years ago. So
Mhm.
I know they're fairly new, but
Yeah, it doesn't have to be old structures for this stuff to happen, for sure.
yeah.
Just approximately, you don't have to be exact, but just approximately, where did this happen? The apartment, you just give a town or whatever you're comfortable with.
So it's in North Carolina. It's in Lexington.
Okay.
So
Is that where the elementary school is as well?
no, the elementary school where the SpongeBob incident happened with me was in Boone.
Okay.
So it's like near the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting stuff. I unfortunately don't have any answers other than to say, other people have experienced similar. Thank you so much for sharing your story, because somebody will hear it and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I had something similar," and they'll call in too. And that's a great thing about this, is that one person sharing their story leads to someone else sharing their story, and I think it makes people more comfortable, but it also lets people know, like, yeah, this stuff is happening.
Yeah, and I hope that works too, because it worked with me for sure when I heard that lady's story about her and her experience. So
Yeah. Tyler, thanks for sharing your stories.
yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Anything else weird happens, you know where to find me.
Awesome.
If you like Strange Familiars and you'd like to help us make the show and get extra content besides, you can become a patron at Patreon. It's patreon.com/strangefamiliars. All of our patrons get commercial-free versions of the weekly show, plus extra episodes. We do exclusive episodes, at least one, sometimes more, every month for our patrons. Patreon patrons will also, this year, get the chance to be involved in a paranormal experiment, which we'll be introducing either probably this month or next. We have to find time to record the patron show to introduce the idea to patrons. So that'll be coming soon. It's a great time to become a patron. You get to participate in that. You get to help us with the experiment and decide some things about the experiment as we go on. Once again, that is at Patreon, patreon.com/strangefamiliars. There is also a program on Apple Podcasts. There it is called Patron of the Strange. And our Apple Podcast patrons also get the commercial-free weekly shows and the extra shows monthly. I want to thank all of our patrons, no matter where they're signed up. Thank you so much. We could not do the show without your help. All right, Alison. We got some ghost stories here.
Not like anything resembling anything we've seen recently or anything.
Well, are you speaking about what you've seen recently?
Yeah, I don't think it was a ghost, but it was just something that scared me.
Do you want to talk about that? I find it really interesting.
I mean, yeah, sure.
So I was doing an interview.
Yeah, and I was like, I had just got done doing my exercises, and I was walking on a little treadmill, and then I still had my headphones on. So I was at the back of our house, and I heard what I thought was you talking, because I still had I was just listening to the end of a podcast. Mm-hmm. Then I heard this noise, which I thought was you, but then I took my headphones off. I was like, oh no, it's somebody outside. So I kind of looked out quickly. I couldn't see anything because it was really dark. And then I turned the lights out in the room and looked out again. and I kept hearing something. And then like my eyes sort of adjusted to like just a little minimal amount of light that was outside from like all the houses around. And as that became just sort of seemed to glow and become more apparent, all of a sudden I looked out and just down the road, seemingly coming from nowhere, was this super tall, fast walking guy with a very pronounced limp. And he was just going super, super fast. And like, I've watched him, and then I thought, well, I'll see him either go to the left or the right, and I'll kind of like watch out for him. And then I just didn't see him go anywhere. So he could have continued on where I couldn't see, but it scared the...
Yeah, you were very frightened.
I was very frightened by him because I didn't see where he was coming from. And I didn't see where he was going.
Also, it was what, like 14 degrees out or something?
Yeah, it's so cold. It's not time for a leisurely walk. Whoever is out there because of something. I would suggest that someplace they didn't want to be.
Yeah.
He didn't have a dog with him. You know, like I see people dressed up to walk their dogs, but I don't see people out for fun, leisurely nighttime walks when it's this.
Other than me.
Yeah. You are sometimes, but I'd make the cutoff at 20s.
Yeah, usually if it's below 20, I'm hard pressed to go out and take a walk for exercise. That's getting weird.
Because my thought is like, there's no room for error.
Yeah.
You can't fall down and be out there for an hour. You can't
Yeah. Well, I was just happy to hear that it was outside because I had a dream a couple nights before about this jet black demon in that bathroom that you were looking out the window out of.
Oh.
So when you're like all scared, I'm like, oh no, what is it? You're like that. Like, okay, well, at least it wasn't.
At least he was outside.
At least it wasn't inside.
Yeah, and I kind of guessed that from the fact that I kind of heard somebody talking that maybe was shouting to somebody on the phone or was in an argument or was just...
Yeah, I don't know. You were definitely upset, though. Maybe you saw your own ghost.
Oh, I don't limp.
I mean, not a ghost that you saw.
Yes, my very own.
Yeah, not of you.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of local ghosts, I think I covered this story before, but I found it again as I was kind of flipping through looking for stories. And it's so relevant to an area I love to hike in that I wanted to go over it again. I think we did it on the show. We might not have, though. This is from the York Gazette from June 1st, 1875. A spook. The Big Patch is an island that is formed in the river near Turkey Hill, within the recollections of many of our inhabitants, and strange stories are current, of late, of an apparition being seen in that vicinity, which has taken upon itself the form and dress of a soldier. It is seen hovering over the water in that neighborhood, sometimes pushing a canoe, at others apparently walking on the water. It is seen deliberately walking about on the island, smoking a pipe. Again, it may be witnessed in the air, as if in the act of striding over the treetops, but always enveloped in the inevitable blue overcoat of the U.S. Army. One night last week it was noticed on a deserted fishery, prone in the sand. About midnight, it suddenly arose, embarked in a phantom canoe, and pushing for the Big Patch, it landed, made a few strides in the direction of an unoccupied cabin, and upon reaching the door, entered and closed it, but was not seen to emerge during the night. That was originally from the Columbia Herald.
So Turkey Hill is the area close to where the big windmills are, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That is the Turkey Hill of the convenience.
It is what the convenience store is named after. The ice cream, if people are familiar with that. I'm not sure how far Turkey Hill ice cream goes from here. I know Utz has a limited range. They will only drive as far as they can go in one day, I think, Utz.
Potato chips?
Yeah.
Oh.
So to guarantee they're fresh or something like that. That's what they say. I don't know.
Yeah, they sit on the shelves for like 4 more weeks.
Look,
So what does it matter?
This is only what I've heard.
Oh, okay.
In any case, I don't know how far Turkey Hill goes. But if people are familiar with the ice cream or the iced tea.
So this is one of those little islands in the middle of the Susquehanna.
In the middle of the river, yeah. And it would be right across from that area we call Green Branch, where we've had a number of sightings reported of strange things.
At least he was Union. Do you think he got pushed off the bridge at some point?
I have no clue.
When they burned the bridge?
I have no clue. I'm of the opinion that not all ghosts are spirits of dead people. Could just be something that is taking that form for whatever reason. Tuesday, December 11th, 1877, also from the York Gazette. Spook. They liked that term for ghosts back then. We are informed, says the Hanover Spectator, that one of those spectral visitants from the other world, termed a spook, made its appearance on several of the nights of last week on the northern end of Carlisle Street, to the great terror of the belated individuals obliged to walk that thoroughfare. We believe the spook gave chase to various parties, causing some pretty lively running to be done by the frightened mortals. Some persons, not so easily scared, however, affirm that the spook is simply some mischievous person, indulging a spirit of fun in the guise of supernatural visitant in order to terrify timid people obliged to be out late at night, and are watching sharply to detect and unmask him. This business of playing spook may not, after all, prove a very profitable species of amusement to the personator if discovered. Next one comes from the York Democratic Press from November 21st, 1879. A Pike County ghost.
Where is Pike County?
That is up in the Poconos, I believe.
Oh, okay. The latest sensation in this part of the country is a real live ghost. 52 years ago, a man named John Goble was found lying in a pool of blood on the road leading from Milford to Dingman's Ferry. A large gash was found in the side of his head, and it was supposed that the old man had been murdered and robbed. He was buried immediately after the coroner's inquest and in a few years was entirely forgotten. About 3 weeks ago, the stage driver who carries the Philadelphia Mail between Milford and the Delaware Water Gap, while passing the spot where Goble was murdered, saw an object clothed in white start up from the ground and walk on the road just in front of the horses. The driver urged his team on, but the ghost still kept a little in advance. After trotting his horses some distance, the driver stopped, and as he dismounted from the stage, the ghost sank into the ground and disappeared. This was repeated 2 or 3 evenings, and the mail carrier at last became alarmed and armed himself with a 6-shooter. Since that time, he has seen the ghost at a distance several times, but he has not shot at it. The mail carrier's name is Ceres, and he told the story in Milford, where it spread like wildfire. Parties were organized to search for the wandering spirit, and one party saw it at a short distance. They fired several shots at the object, and it disappeared. A party of young ladies, accompanied by one gentleman, a day or 2 ago visited the place where the ghost is usually seen. About 100 yards from the spot is an old deserted house, and one of the young ladies, more courageous than the rest, started to walk around this old house in search of the spook. When about halfway around the building, she heard a groan, and turned around, she saw standing just behind her an object 6 feet tall, clothed in white. She screamed and fainted, but before the remainder of the party reached her, the ghost had vanished. The spirit has since been seen twice, and on each occasion it was pursued, but it always vanished after reaching a certain place in the woods. It is supposed by many that the ghost is a man, dressed up in a sheet to create a sensation. Others, who are more superstitious, believe it is the spirit of John Goble, searching for his murderer. Whatever it is, it certainly succeeded in creating a decided sensation.
So this is from the Record Argus from Greenville, Pennsylvania, from February 12th, 1876. Now, what I was doing is I was looking for, so there's a place in Michaud called Haunted Hollow. And I thought, well, there must be stories about that. There must be a reason why it's called Haunted Hollow. I found nothing on that in my search anyway. I'm sure there's stuff out there. I just didn't find any of this. But I did find stories of other haunted hollows in Pennsylvania. So this is the story of a haunted hollow up that way, up near Greenville, I suppose.
This county has a genuine ghost story and a haunted hollow. The hollow is located on the Mercer and Sharon Road and is known in the neighborhood by the sulphurous title of Hell Hollow. This was on the location of a small lake, which has long since worn its way through the shale until only a small rivulet marks the spot. Where the ghost appears, the road winds between high banks and the hollow is very narrow. As long as the oldest inhabitant can remember, horses have been frightened in this spot by something which was invisible to the human eye, and the teamsters and others have feared to pass the spot. Within the last 25 years, the apparition has made an appearance to belated travelers. The first stories of the kind were attributed to a different kind of spirits, but lately the numerous tales being of the same kind have attracted considerable attention. The first one to see the ghost was one James L. Cook, who resides near the place. He was passing through the spot one night when he suddenly noticed a man with a gray coat and bareheaded walking by the side of his horse. He first said "good night" to his mysterious companion, then receiving no reply, he remarked, "You have lost your hat." But no answer was returned. Cook then spurred his horse up, resolved to part with such an unsociable company, but in vain, as the speed of the walker kept pace with his.
Ooh.
Provoked at his conduct, Cook then struck him a violent blow with his riding stick, when his anger turned to horror as the stick passed through his body without meeting any resistance or causing any change of contact. He rode rapidly towards town, and at the top of the hill the apparition disappeared as rapidly as it came. 10 years afterwards, he was passing through the same place on foot and with a lantern when he saw the same apparition. It was standing with its back towards the road, and Cook struck it with a lantern, meeting no resistance. Why is this guy so... He just wants to beat everything. Let's see if it's real. Poke it with a stick. Another, accompanied by his wife, was passing the place with a team when suddenly a space about 10 feet square became luminous, and in the midst of it appeared a man. He was distinctly seen by both, and each agreed in the description, stating that he wore a gray coat of which the seams were visible and with box pockets. H.L. Stone of Sharon went through the hollow one moonlight night, and the apparition walked by the side of his buggy. He asked it to ride, and when it refused to answer, struck it. The whip passed through the appearance, and Stone drove away as fast as he could. Joseph Redman had an encounter with what he supposed to be a man near the end of the hollow. The man refused to speak, and he undertook to whip him, but he was satisfied with one blow, as his fist went through his head, and Joe declined further controversy with an antagonist who took punishment so quietly.
I think the lesson here is to answer.
Anyone.
When
Yeah.
spoken to, or you're going
I'm
to
good,
get whipped.
man. Just keep going. Another man was going home one very dark night, and being unable to see the stepping stones in the creek, attempted to cross it on his hands and knees. This seems like such a bad idea at night, doesn't it? When halfway across, he came face to face with a weird-looking being. He jumped to his feet and ran, while the object disappeared in the ground. Unlike other ghost stories, there's no legend or tradition or any tragedy which ever occurred here, and no one knows of any person being murdered or robbed in the place.
Wasn't it called Hell Hollow?
I don't know which one came first.
Yeah. Super interesting. That's like the other one you read, where the spirit was staying ahead of the stagecoach.
Mm-hmm.
He was trying to catch it, and it was always ahead. And this one he's riding, and it's like this was walking beside him, and it's keeping pace with him riding on the horse.
Mm-hmm.
All right, another haunted hollow here. This is from the Center Daily Times from State College, January 3rd, 1908. Peculiar manifestation, an uncanny place where strange noises are heard. Flames of fire leap into the air. Brain-racking cries and the sound of a falling limb put would-be jokers to flight. A peculiar mound in the hollow.
About 7 miles north of Blairsville is a heavily timbered tract of land, which on account of the uncanny noises heard has been named Haunted Hollow. The place is a lonely one and an ideal spot for the spirits to hold away, and so well do they guard it that few have the hardihood to dispute their possession. The manifestations are peculiar, and so far no explanation has been discovered that would clear up the mystery. They are like that of a large limb of a tree breaking off and crashing down through the boughs of the trees, with great velocity, and striking the earth with terrific force. Then, in a field surrounded by woods on 3 sides, is heard a noise like a large herd of cattle, or many horses in rapid flight. Again and again have persons immediately gone to where the mysterious noise came, but there was no sign of any limb having fallen, and it was definitely known that there was no stock in the field from which the noise came. A great many young men in that neighborhood have heard these noises, so the fact that they exist can be abundantly proven. The writer once heard the limb fall and never cares to have a repetition of the occurrence. He was riding through Haunted Hollow during a bright moonlit night when the ground was covered with a heavy snow, thus making it almost as light as midday. Instantly came a mighty crash, such has been described, so frightening the horse that it ran home before it could be controlled, thus giving the rider a flight through space, scarcely distanced by a fast express train. Other noises have been heard, such as peculiar cries or yells, something akin to that of a wild animal or vulture, and yet not just like either. The writer heard this noise once, and the hair on his head seemed to stand on end for a few seconds. In the hollow is a peculiar mound, in some ways resembling an Indian grave, but differing in many others. It is circular in form, being dug out of the center and the ground excavated, thrown round the hole, thus forming an elevation around it. This place has never been examined. Years ago, Messrs. Clark Watson, W.R. Gruby, and David Griffin, at that time residing near this mound, decided to investigate it. They chose a dark night for the work of exploration and proceeded to the place and began to dig. After a few strokes of the mattock, it struck something like a box that gave a hollow sound. At this juncture, a fear fell over all three men, and without a word being spoken, they involuntarily beat a hasty retreat, and to this day no effort has been made to further the investigation. A few years ago, two young men concluded to frighten some of their associates in that neighborhood. One of them was to stand in the hollow beside a dead tree, which he could push down, thus imitating the fallen limb. The other was to lead the young men through the woods in close proximity to the dead tree. The crowd assembled to the haunted hollow, and just before reaching the place where the tree was to fall, the mysterious crash came with tremendous force, and as it struck the ground, a flame of fire leaped into the air several feet. A precipitate flight ensued, and the principals in the affair were no less frightened than the others, all being thoroughly scared. The three men referred to are well known to many citizens. W.R. Ruby of Wilkinsburg is the only one now living, and from him the writer got the information in regard to the investigation of the Indian mound in the hollow, and he can vouch for the truthfulness of the statement. An explanation of the scenes enacted in that region is that a peddler was murdered in that hollow years ago, and that his ghost makes its appearance from time to time.
I want to go there.
Where is this?
I can find it. I'll have to do some looking. I'll turn Chad loose on it. He'll find it. So, yeah, I like those old ghost stories. Also, it gives me places to go check out.
Mm-hmm.
So these places, I think, ooh, I want to check that out. I want to check out that island near
Turkey Hill?
Near Turkey Hill, if it's still there. I think.
Well, how would you get to it?
I would get John to canoe me out there. Or Chad. Chad's got a canoe.
Some of those are private islands. You know, there was one that was for sale recently.
Well, okay, they'll have to catch me on the island, I guess.
The thing I always wonder about that is, like, it's your island till we have too much water.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, it's your island till we have another hurricane, and then you don't even have land anymore.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, we'll have more ghost stories in the future, I'm sure.
Hopefully none in our backyard.
Was he wearing flannel?
It was totally black. That's the thing. You couldn't discern anything about him. It was like, it was so backlit or something that it was like just completely black. It was almost like it was just a silhouette.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting.
What, do you think it wasn't a real guy?
I don't know what, but I'm not going to say it.
I'm more scared by real people, frankly.
Yeah, I get that. Is this a real photo postcard?
It is a real photo postcard.
Okay. Yeah, it's stiffer because it was at one point in someone's album, I guess.
Yes, I would say so.
Yeah. This is certainly out back of a circus somewhere. I'm thinking it's behind the circus tents.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a group of performers, no doubt. Clowns among them. There's a guy dressed as a cowboy, may have been a sharpshooter of some sort. We don't know what circus this was. We have no clue, right?
I could narrow it down, but it would take a while.
A selection of clowns and other performers, some people in costume of various sorts. But I just find it a very kind of eerie, cool picture.
Yeah, it's also because it has like it's silver gelatin era, and when you look at those in the light, and you see the little silver. Some of those clowns are downright kind of creepy looking.
Yeah.
And then some of them, like the guy on the left, has a look of like sort of like a guy who's just like he's very self confident, looks very suave, but he's dressed like a clown, so it's just like very.
Hey.
I mean, I guess you've got clown game. I don't know. It can happen. There's got to be groupies for clowns, right? There's groupies for everything.
I mean, not for podcasters experience, but anyway.
You're no Ira Glass, I guess.
I am indeed. I'm not.
You don't get that kind of game.
This will be our curiosity of the week.
Mm-hmm.
This here real photo postcard.
this horror
of the creepy clowns and other circus performers here. I will take a photo of this or scan it or something of the sort, and I will put that image in the show notes. And if you click on that, it'll take you to our Etsy shop where you can purchase that and other curiosities of the week, those that are left. While you're at Etsy, make sure to check out Strange Familiars t-shirts, stickers, patches. Got plenty of t-shirt designs still. My books are there. If you order them from us on Etsy, they'll come signed. I'll sign them before we pack them up. Alison has ephemera there, other photographs like this, and some other various ephemera of different sorts there.
And I have a lot on our eBay store if you want to look up Strange Familiars.
Okay.
On my eBay store, including I'm going to be putting up more vintage Valentines. I've been selling a lot of those. So.
You do well with Valentines.
I know, they're so pretty.
Yeah. Also at Etsy is artwork. We have originals and prints up there. The artwork for tonight's show should be up there, assuming I get it done in time, and much more. We're going to start a series of prints from our photo collection of just really cool images. So I will be adding those soon too. There's just like 9x12 kind of prints of these cool old photos. And the first one I'm doing is it a Wolpertinger?
Yeah. I think that's...
It's this kind of... It's a photo of a horned owl, right?
He has a real Mothman-like quality to him.
Yeah, it's pretty wild photo. And I figure it's a very strange, familiar subject to put up. So we'll be doing prints of that first. And then we'll go from there. We'll just, it'll be a variety of things, but we'll do, different prints. We'll do a whole series of them. Depends on how busy the printer is. I might be able to get one done this week. I'll announce it on next week's show if it's available. All right. Our Etsy shop name is Lost Grave. But if you go to Etsy and you type in Strange Familiars, you should see our stuff come up. There's also links in the show notes. Should be links to our eBay store there as well. That is under Strange Familiars, right? eBay.
It is, yeah.
So check out everything Alison's doing over there at eBay in the real world, off the internet. State Theater Vintage in Columbia, Pennsylvania. Alison has a stand. You can get my books there, but Alison has a lot more antique-y stuff there. What do you got over at State Theater Vintage? A lot of frame stuff?
I am bringing some more frame stuff this week, and then I always have a lot of
And we mean by that framed pictures, like cool old frame pictures.
Yeah, I have a morning piece and a lot of Victorian stuff I'm bringing over this week. I have a whole cabinet full of medical things. If you need a speculum, I'm your gal.
Is that boar skull still there?
No.
Oh, the boar skull sold.
Yeah, like 6 months ago, too.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so a few different oddities and things.
And then lots of pretty glass.
And over in Hanover, Pennsylvania, the other side of the Columbia's not in the county. Columbia's just in Lancaster County.
Yeah.
Just over the river in Lancaster
And
County.
just all but in Adams County. In Hanover.
In Hanover, yeah. Hanover is the other side, the west side of York County. We have a stand in Black Rose Antiques. Our stand there we do with Chad. And Chad has lots of wool and axes, and he's got a whole cabinet full of knives there. Some of them are...
Some of them are the handmade ones.
Yeah, that his friend has made. Chad's adding more clothing soon. I think he's kind of branching out and just doing vintage clothes in general, not just the woodsman gear. He's branching out, which is a good thing.
Yeah, he has a good eye for it, and he has a good sense of quality. And
yeah. We'll be changing up that stand soon, kind of reorganizing it, which is good. It's time for reorganization. But in the meantime, go there. My books should be there, although they sell out pretty regularly. We haven't been over there in a while, but many of my books should be there, maybe not all of them. We'll do a restock soon. We'll get them all over there.
If it stops snowing.
Next time we get over there. Lots of frame pictures there as well. Old prints and old paintings and things like that.
And a lot of glass over there, too.
A lot of glass over there if you want art glass.
Yeah.
And
basically every color. Pick a color.
Yeah. Do you have any the glow-in-the-dark glass?
That actually sells out really quickly. I don't know if I have any pieces left of uranium glass, but...
And a good variety. There's other books there besides mine, like antique books and just a variety of stuff over there. That's at Black Rose Antiques in Hanover. So check it out if you can. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We will be back soon with more Strange Familiars. Strange Familiars is a production of Dark Color Arts. Intro and background music is by Stone
Breath.
Yes, it's by Stone Breath. You're right. If you want to hear more or purchase music, go to stonebreath.bandcamp.com. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/strangefamiliars, where you can join the Strange Familiars gathering group. We're on Instagram @strangefamiliars, one word, no underscore. Please give us a like and follow there. I really don't feel like paying for that blue check. It's like,
I don't think it means anything.
It's like $12 a month. It means you're official. just like our, just
Trust me on that.
yeah, it's just at Strange Familiars.
Who would want to be us?
But make me feel like I have a blue check by following me there.
Yeah,
If I get a bunch of followers, I'll feel like I have a blue check. And where else are we? We're at strangefamiliars.com 24/7. And that's where you can find the merch section at strangefamiliars.com/merch for all your Strange Familiars merch.